Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
Great day today. Had fun. We went playing golf. It's fun. Looking forward to the show. We got some nice
let's jump
topics.
right into it. Let's get into it
Getting
immediately.
into basketball and a little bit about football. And topic one, Golden State Warriors will face off against the Houston Rockets on Sunday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on TNT. This will be the sixth meeting between these two teams, with the Warriors taking the regular season series 3-2. Golden State is coming off a great victory over the Memphis Grizzlies. Nate, are you nervous about the Warriors' chances against Houston?
I am, and a lot of people aren't, and I think it's because just strictly the lack of experience, playoff experience that the Houston Rockets have. But Ime Udoka, their head coach, known for his physicality, 110% on defense. He led the Celtics to an NBA Finals appearance, and then got decimated in 6 games with Curry dropping 40 points, 30 points the last 3 of those games in those NBA Finals, which ultimately led to his 4th title with the Golden State Warriors, and Ime Udoka went home and then got fired in replace of Joe Mazzulla. So that's really the experience. 3 of the Rockets starters have 0 playoff experience, which that's going to be, I think, potentially a very crucial aspect of this series, because at the head of the spear, the Warriors, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, all have won 4 NBA titles. So, and then Steve Kerr has actually won 9 if you include his also playing career. So, Steve Kerr knows NBA Finals, won 9 of them, coach and player. Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, each won 4. But I think that this is going to come down to I think this could go 7, truthfully. And the fact that the Warriors are actually favored in this series is going to be very interesting to watch, because Draymond Green, he had a quote saying that he doesn't really believe that they're the typical 7 seed, and I can understand that, but sometimes you have to look at the record and say, you know what? You are what your record says you are. Now, albeit, in this case, it's a little bit different, because they made a serious acquisition about at the trade deadline with the Jimmy Butler move, and they've won an incredible amount with Jimmy Butler. So I think it's going to be key to see if playoff Jimmy, because we saw what play-in Jimmy looks like, and he was incredible for the Warriors. 38 points. He had 21 free throw attempts, I'm pretty sure. So we've already seen what that could look like. It's just a question of, can he do it again in the playoffs against the Houston Rockets, an incredibly physical team. And I think that's what's going to be interesting, because the last time these teams met, Steph Curry shot 1 of 10 for 3 points. That's bad. Really bad. And if Amin Thompson, if Dylan Brooks, who, by the way, combined each held Curry to 0 for 3 from the floor, if they could do that again, the Warriors are going to be in serious trouble. My personal opinion on this series is I think it does go 7 games. And I think that game 1 is really going to be a determining factor of how the series is going to turn out. Because if Dylan Brooks and Amin Thompson and Şengün, they dominate defensively, and Curry gets pissed, and Curry can't shoot very well, I think that this game could actually go less than 7, with the Houston Rockets absolutely destroying the Golden State Warriors. So I am incredibly nervous if I was a Warriors fan about this series. because I just think that you're going up against a very difficult opponent, a physical opponent, and if you can keep up with Steph Curry and not allow him to do Stephen Curry things, I think the Warriors are going to be really in for it on this one. They're not a very deep team, which is interesting, because we don't know exactly what their bench is going to perform, the level that they're going to perform against the Houston Rockets team that's extremely young. And what happens when you go against old late in a series versus young and late in a series? The younger team normally can pick it up late because old guys, 37, 36 years old, they get tired during an NBA series, especially a playoff series. I'm never going to put anything behind Stephen Curry and Steve Kerr and Draymond Green, but I do think that going up against a very young team, a physical team, led by an incredible head coach in Ime Udoka, I think it's going to be a very good series, and I'm going to take the Warriors in 7, but I do think this is going to be a very, very difficult series for Golden State.
Yeah, I agree. Look at the Warriors. They're the 7th seed at 48-34. They had to have a play-in game to get to the 7th seed. They beat Memphis. The Rockets at 52-30, number 2, had a nice turnaround season. Number 2 seed, Ime Udoka, emphasizing defense. Great defensive coach. They've bought into his scheme, and it shows up in the results. The Warriors, as you mentioned, have more experience. Houston at the 2nd seed, first time in the playoffs since 2020. The Warriors have won 3 of the 5 in the last regular season games, losing the most recent game, 106-96. All the other games were very close as well. And then that game, that's the one where Curry had the 1 for 10 shooting. The series stats on Houston is court 29-12 win rate, so they do very well at home. Steph Curry 4-0 in the playoff series against Houston in his career. Nick Wright had an interesting quote. Said, after watching the Warriors' performance this past week, I'd like to be the first person to congratulate the Lakers on beating the Rockets to advance to the Western Conference Finals. So he doesn't think the Warriors are going anywhere in this series, but we'll see. The Warriors are 23-7 since trading for Jimmy Butler, who had 38-point performance in the play-in game against Memphis. On the road, the Warriors were 24-17 this season. Charles Barkley's picking the Rockets. Shaq is picking the Warriors because of the experience over youth. Smith is picking the Rockets because he thinks Jalen Green is going to play more consistently. The Warriors at number 7 are favored over Houston at number 2. It's the first time a 7 seed has been favored over a 2 seed since 1988. So that's an interesting stat. Houston's inexperienced in the playoffs. Fred VanVleet, who's one of their guards, won the championship with Toronto in 2019, but Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, and Amen Thompson have never been to the playoffs, so that's certainly a factor that favors the Warriors. Curry had one of his worst games of the season in that last game against the Rockets. He was 1 for 10 from the field, 1 from 8 from three-point range, and ended with 3 points. The Warriors have playoff Jimmy. I think that could be the difference here, who took the Heat to 2 NBA Finals in 4 years. Houston has Udoka, who is a defensive-minded coach who has Houston playing very physical basketball. The Warriors won't need Butler to carry them the same way he did with Miami, because the Warriors have Curry and Green. But if he can help Curry with the offensive load and close game and the close games, while providing Green with a dynamic defensive duo, that Kerr actually compares them to Pippen and Jordan. The Warriors will win the game 1, I think, and could make a run like they did in 2022 when they went to the finals. Houston's had success against the Warriors when they get physical, like they did on the game earlier in April that we just talked about. When they forced 20 turnovers and held Curry to the 1 of 10 shooting. The Warriors need to figure out a way to free Curry of Houston's physical defenders like Thompson and Dylan Brooks. The Warriors bench will be a key factor that has contributed, this is little known, I think, plus 1.6 net points per game, compared better than the starters who are at 1.2. The Warriors are the only playoff team to have this kind of a stat this season. I think the best case scenario is playoff Jimmy in conjunction with the two other greatest postseason overachievers of the past 2 decades, Curry and Green, play well, and the Warriors win game 1.
I actually have to completely disagree with that. They desperately need Jimmy Butler to be a massive X factor. And I do think at times Jimmy Butler will need to carry Steph Curry. Because what happens when Amin Thompson and Dylan Brooks shut him down like they did in the prior meeting? You need that other guy. You're not going to trust Pajemski to come out and shoot because he's had very cold nights. You're not going to trust Draymond Green to be the guy. Buddy Hield's coming off the bench. You don't trust him in a late game shot like they did against the Clippers. So you desperately need Jimmy Butler outscored every single Warriors player in that first half against Memphis. Do they beat Memphis if Jimmy Butler doesn't drop 38?
No.
Absolutely. So I completely disagree with that. They're going to need Jimmy Butler to be a huge part of this game.
No, I agree that. I agree with that.
And yes, they will. They desperately will need Jimmy Butler to carry them throughout the series.
No, but I'm not sure
because they have no.
Them.
Well, okay, here we go. Define carry.
Being the leading scorer in every game and leading rebounder, a big assist getter. I think with Green and Curry there, they're going to spread the wealth. I don't think he has.
But they didn't.
I don't think he has to be as big a factor as he was for Miami when they went to the finals.
But you just proved my point, though, by saying that if Jimmy Butler didn't drop 38, they would have lost against Memphis. He dropped 38 and they lost by 5.
But Curry had 37.
37. So what I'm saying is that if Butler doesn't, let's say Butler scores 25 points, that's a very good game. They lose that game by 10. Because you're really gonna have to trust Brandon Pajemski to actually have a good shooting night. He's not gonna shoot 6 of 10 or 5 of 11 from 3. Draymond Green's not gonna be your primary scorer outside of Curry. You're not gonna trust Moses Moody to be that primary scorer at all. You don't have size, so you could put Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun out there, and they will dominate down low. That actually falls more into the Jimmy Butler aspect, where he could take over the game because he drew over 20 free throws. So that's where Jimmy Butler could carry his team by just being an efficient scorer, an effective scorer.
Well,
put Steven Adams in foul trouble, put Sengun into foul trouble, limit his effectiveness on the floor. He's averaging a double-double this season, so if you can get out there top guy, in my opinion, on your team in Sengun, then yeah, that opens it up for Quentin Post to get a couple shots. But again, you're not going to trust him to be that secondary scorer. Gary Payton's not going to be your secondary scorer. It's Curry and Butler. Those are your two guys. Pajemski's your number 3. But he's an extremely young player. He's not the Steph Curry catch-and-shoot guy that they initially wanted him to be. So you need Jimmy Butler to be playoff Jimmy. Because if you're not, there's a reason this team got to the 7th seed. Yeah, there's a reason this team fell apart late in the series. And think about it. What happened in the overtime game against the Clippers? Curry didn't show up. Nobody else showed up. They had to trust Buddy Hield to shoot an out-of-bounds shot from 3. So, yeah, absolutely, they desperately need Jimmy Butler to help carry along with Steph Curry because Curry's going to get double-teamed by Dylan Brooks, who they have a massive aggressive history with one another.
You're missing my point.
You're
missing my point.
My point was Butler to carry.
My point was that Jimmy Butler doesn't have to be as much of a player carrying the team as he was in Miami when he's playing with the Warriors. So the Warriors have better talent around Jimmy Butler than he had when he was with Miami.
Okay.
So I think I don't disagree that he has to play big and he has to be playoff Jimmy and he has to have big nights. He has to get to the foul line. He has to get the other players, as you mentioned, in foul trouble. He has to have assists. He has to have big scoring nights. But he doesn't have to have the kind of dominant performance and carrying a team like he did with Miami because the Warriors have better talent than Miami did. That was my point.
If Curry has a bad night, I would take
then they're going to lose.
I would take Bam Adebayo over every single other person on the Golden State Warriors. If Curry's having an off night, it puts Jimmy Butler in a more precarious situation because, again, I would take Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero over the rest of the Warriors roster outside of Curry.
Really?
So that would mean it's actually a worse situation than in Miami because you can go to Bam. You can go to Tyler Hero. You can go to Caleb Martin, he could have a great game. You can go to Max Strus, and he cannot miss a three.
Okay, well,
because we saw that against the Boston Celtics. The Gabe Vincent dominated on defense against the Celtics. Max Strus had a couple crazy shots. I'm pretty sure Caleb Martin in Game 7 couldn't miss from three.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you're gonna have to trust Quinton Post, Moses Moody, and Gary Payton to come up big.
They never
Draymond Green can't be your scorer.
In the 4 years, the 2 times that the Miami Heat got to the finals, they would never have gotten there without Jimmy Butler.
I agree.
He carried them there.
I agree. But
remember some of those games? He had games of he had a couple of games close to 50 points on the way to against the Bucks, right? Remember that?
Yep, yeah, I do.
So I don't think he's going to be that kind of player in this series. I think he's going to be down low, drawing the fouls, getting to the foul line, which has helped the Warriors immensely. They were never a team that got to the foul line until Jimmy Butler got there.
True.
So I do think the Warriors are going to win this series. You have them in 7.
I have the Warriors in 7.
Yeah, I think it probably could go 7. I think Udoka has got this team playing very well, playing very good defensive ball, and I think they bought into his scheme. I do think, though, you look at Steve Kerr. You mentioned he has 4 NBA championships as a coach. He has 5 as a player. 2
with the Spurs, 3 with the Warriors. Bulls.
Yeah. So he knows how to coach in the playoffs more than Udoka does. So I like the experience factor. I'm with Shaq. I think the Warriors and I'll agree with you in 7. It's going to be a very close series.
I'm going to fear for Steven Adams versus Draymond Green. They have a little bit of a history. If you remember, against Memphis, he was was against Memphis? All I know is he got a little bit kicky. Let's just say that. Draymond Green tends to kick Steven Adams in the midsection a little bit, and that's what got him a bunch of technical fouls.
That could be a factor if Draymond Green can't keep his cool and gets technicals and gets thrown out of games.
May teach Steven Adams give him a little reminder of their history between one another.
Yeah.
Let's get into our next topic of today's show.
Okay, the Los Angeles Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua recently went on Julian Edelman's podcast, and Edelman asked Nacua if he thinks Brock Purdy's extension will start with a 4 or a 5, meaning $40 million or $50 million per season. And this is what Puka had to say.
Brock Purdy, is he going to get a 5?
I don't think so.
Do you think he's going to go with a 4? It's going to start with a 4.
Yeah.
A high 4?
No. I think
mid 4.
Mid 4.
A 45?
I think so. I mean, I think
if he does that, that'd be smart for him and them.
Yeah. I mean, I think he seems like a smart guy. I think they have a chance to still be in their window. And I think if he goes for a 5, that the window closes.
So, agree or disagree with Puka's comment?
Funny. I find that hilarious. Criticizing my takes, coming at me for my apparently hate on Brock Purdy, even though 95% of the people that I spoke to in the comment section, I had no issue with the $50 million, and I've said that on the show repeatedly, that I have no issue going between the $45 to $50 million range. But again, nobody wants to talk about the contract. They want to talk about what I said, which is an accurate comparison between Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, because their time on the San Francisco 49ers, the numbers are significantly closer than you would think. Because, again, we look at Brock Purdy and we think, oh, my God, he's this great quarterback. And he is. He's a phenomenal quarterback. He's made it to an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl and led late, led in overtime with a field goal, and then the Chiefs ran down the field and scored a touchdown, which ended the 49ers' chances at winning that Super Bowl. And Super Bowl was at 58, I believe. So I completely agree. 100% agree. And me and you had this conversation not too long ago about what's the update on Brock Purdy's contract status. Because we heard initially that they made him an offer. They want to make him a top. The CEO, Jed York, said that Brock Purdy should be paid like a top 10 quarterback, but this deal hasn't been signed. Purdy wants to be obviously extended by the 49ers on a massive deal. The GM, John Lynch, and also the CEO have both said they want to pay him big money. I believe John Lynch said that they want to make him the highest paid quarterback or one of the highest paid quarterbacks. The CEO, Jed York, said they want to make him a top 10 paid quarterback in the NFL. So what's the deal? What's going on here? What's with Brock Purdy? Well, supposedly, during a Thursday appearance on KNBR, Murph and Marcus program, 49ers insider Matt Maiocco, probably getting that name wrong, I apologize, of NBC Sports Bay Area said, quote, the latest is that the 49ers have made an offer. It's kind of sitting out there. Brock Purdy in his camp, and I don't know how much involved Brock is. I'm sure the agent is shielding him from a lot of the stuff, but the offer that the 49ers have made isn't one that Brock Purdy's side is inclined to take at this point, nor will they. This is bad. I'm telling you right now, this is bad. My guess is the report that we initially got of $45 million per year, I am fairly confident that's an accurate report. I know Diana Rossini completely debunked that report. Well, then why? If it's between 45 to 50 million, clearly they want a significant amount more. And if they go in this, and these are the top 10 contracts, by the way, by quarterbacks, if they want to go into this level, why not break it down? Because I understand that some people might look at this and make this a top 10 quarterback list. Don't do that. Because at one point, Deshaun Watson would have been number one. Sometimes when quarterbacks sign contracts, being the next one up is not necessarily a good thing, because why should, at that time, Deshaun Watson set the precedent of quarterback contracts? For instance, I don't think Dak Prescott should be setting what's next for the NFL quarterback, because I think everybody could agree, if you just go strictly off production alone, Dak Prescott should not be number one in the NFL on average annual value of quarterback contracts. He just shouldn't be. He has the lowest playoff winning percentage amongst quarterbacks with 5 or more starts at a 2-5 record. That's pitiful. And the last time we saw him in the playoffs, he was getting beaten down by a 7-seed Packers team. That's bad. Really, really bad. So I completely agree, because you lost 17 key players in free agency, a lot on defense, which has been the 49ers' claim to fame since Jimmy Garoppolo brought him to the Super Bowl back in 2019. That's what the 49ers are. The entire scheme, everything about it, is phenomenal controlling the game defense and efficient offense. They have never been this team to go out and score 30 points a game and allow 27, and that's the game. You allow them under 20, and you score about 24, 25 points per game. That's how you succeed if you're the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. People ripping on Nick Sorensen, the DC last year. Well, now you got Robert Saleh, who was the head of the defensive spear when they were making it with Jimmy Garoppolo. So I don't want to hear anything about Robert Saleh now all of a sudden being bad, because we saw with the Jets, he wasn't the issue. And we have to realize that Brock Purdy in the second half, that's where he fell apart, because the defense wasn't keeping him in the game. Once the defense started to slip, Brock Purdy needed to make up the difference, and as it currently stands, I'm not saying this is the projection for his career of what he can or cannot do. What we've seen so far is Brock Purdy and this 49ers team, they dominate on both sides of the ball, mostly on defense, which obviously helps out the offense massively. But then, in close games, trailing late, if the ball is wet, like it was against the Packers, we've seen major moments where Brock Purdy looks average, dare we say? God forbid we say Brock Purdy isn't a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I was smited. What are we doing here? Is Brock Purdy a great quarterback? Yes. Would I take 10 quarterbacks above him? Yes. Because others shown more talent. They've faced more difficulties in their path. For instance, people love to talk about the injuries that the 49ers had last year. And I said this at the time. Justin Herbert with the Los Angeles Chargers, they weren't as banged up as the 49ers. Yet their entire team structure was rated lower than the 49ers. Think about that. The 49ers were one of the most injured teams last year. They weren't number one, but they were one of the most injured teams. Justin Herbert had a 10-7 record and put up better numbers than Brock Purdy with a worse team, regardless of injuries.
Okay, well, I'm not sure why Puka Nacua is out there making these kinds of judgments about other players. I don't think that's going to fit very well with the 49ers when they play the Rams. So Nacua better watch out. He thinks that Brock Purdy's contract should be in the mid-40s somewhere, range close to $45 million. He also said that Purdy receives a contract above $50 million. The 49ers Super Bowl window is closed. I doubt that Purdy takes a contract in the mid-40s. It would be a good deal for the 49ers. And actually, the 49ers, in my mind, are in somewhat of the driver's seat here because if Brock Purdy doesn't take a contract offer, let's say if they offer him something in the mid-40s, which I don't think they're going to do, I think he's going to get in the low 50s somewhere. If he doesn't take it, then he can play. He'll play the next year, and then they'll franchise tag him. So then he'll be playing on a year-to-year contract in the $50 million range, but it'll only be 1 year. So I don't know. I think the 49ers have the upper hand here. And Nacua also said that if they have Fred Warner on the defense, they should be able to figure things out.
So hold on. Even with all the injuries, I want to make sure even with all the injuries, an NFL player, because we didn't play in the NFL, and apparently that discredits us from having an opinion if we watch the game, an NFL player is judging another NFL team and saying if they have this one guy, they should be A-okay.
That's crazy, I think. I don't know where he
even
gets
with all
that.
the injuries, they should be fine, right?
I don't think so.
Just going to put that out there.
I know. That's why I don't give much credence to Puka Nacua's opinion on this, but he brought it up, and we've been talking about Brock Purdy's contract, so it's interesting to talk about, and there's some more things to say here. Brock Purdy played for peanuts these past 3 years, and he's delivered big time with 2 NFC championship games. Well, the first one he got hurt in, it tore his tendon in his elbow, couldn't even throw the ball, and went back into the game. I thought that said a lot about his character. And he had a great performance. He won the other NFC championship game against the Lions, and then he had a great performance against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and a Super Bowl loss, bringing them back from behind in the fourth quarter and getting them the lead in overtime. And they still lost the game because the defense gave up the points. So I think he's shown that he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback because he's been there and played very well in the Super Bowl. 49ers have shed a lot of contracts, as you said, this offseason, to get their books in order and also to prepare for Purdy's contract. A $45 million a year contract looks like a steal, given that far less accomplished quarterbacks are making more than that. And I want to get to that in a second because I think your stats only showed the people above $50 million.
These are the top 10 contracts.
I know, but I want to look at those quarterbacks that are making down below that and see if you think Brock Purdy's better than they are. So I'll get to that in a second.
Well,
okay?
It starts with the number 11 is Kyler Murray at 49.
Okay, that list starts at 50, okay? Let's just wait till I get to my point, okay? Let's see. Based on the belief that the cap will continue to rise, a deal starting in the 50s seems more likely to me. The question is, when does the deal get done? Will it linger into the late summer? And that's a history of the 49ers franchise. Their contracts, they don't get the deals done until just before the season gets going. I think Dallas's Super Bowl window closed when Dak Prescott got $60 million a year. Look how poorly they played last year, and he didn't even make it. He didn't even make it through the whole season. I disagree that the difference between the Super Bowl window open or closed is $5 million. The difference between 45 and $50 million. That's only maybe one, maybe two players, and they wouldn't be elite players making $2.5 million each. The Super Bowl window will be affected more by how Brock Purdy plays, not by whether they can get one or two more players because his contract's either $45 or $50 million. Should Purdy be compared to Josh Allen or to Sam Darnold? Which one would you compare him to?
Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold.
100%.
Sam Darnold's making $37.5 million next year.
Yeah.
Would Purdy take a hometown discount?
Nope.
Probably not.
Nope.
So let's look at some of the other contracts here. Geno Smith, 2025, $40 million. You think Brock Purdy's better than Geno Smith?
Yeah.
Okay. You think Brock Purdy's better than Sam Darnold?
Yeah.
Okay. So he definitely should be above them, right?
So, $40.1 million.
Aaron Rodgers last year got $37.5 million. You think Brock Purdy's better than Aaron Rodgers?
No.
You don't?
Nope.
How about Daniel Jones? He got
Obviously.
$40 million last year.
But again, that's a terrible contract.
Yeah.
And we haven't breached over $40 million yet.
Okay. How about Dak Prescott actually made $40 million last year because his new contract didn't
I
start.
do think Brock Purdy's better than Dak Prescott.
Okay,
but
and how
again,
about-
setting a precedent here.
How about Matthew Stafford? He's getting $40 million.
I do not think Brock Purdy is better than Matthew Stafford.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Josh Allen?
Nope.
No, I agree with that. Patrick Mahomes
Nope.
making $45 million.
Not a chance.
No.
Now, here's the thing.
Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins got $45 million last year. Do you think he's better than Kirk Cousins?
I'm going to say this. Kirk Cousins was an MVP candidate through the first 8 weeks of 2 years ago when he was still on the Minnesota Vikings. I wonder why.
Team scheme and the players.
Thank you.
And the coach.
And Kevin O'Connell's a phenomenal coach.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Last year, no, he wasn't better. But Kirk Cousins was not better than Brock Purdy last year. But when he was on the Minnesota Vikings with Jordan Addison, with T.J. Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, yes, through the first 8 weeks, he was an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
A serious, legitimate MVP
Well, then he
candidate.
got hurt.
And then he got, exactly. But at that point, no.
Okay, a couple more quarterbacks here.
Sure.
How about Deshaun Watson?
Obviously, he's
46
better.
better.
Brock Purdy's better.
That's $46 million. And Kyler Murray's at 46.1.
He was a top 3 quarterback through the first few weeks for
He
you
was.
based on your metrics.
And he was, according to my metrics.
No, I do
Yeah.
not think that Kyler Murray's better than
Okay,
Brock
so
Purdy.
now we're up into the high, we're in beyond $45 million. So it seems like Brock Purdy ought to get more than that.
I know, and I've said
Okay,
that.
okay.
I said I've had no problem with $50 million.
Okay, well, that's where I think he's going to land, somewhere in
But
the
above that,
in the low 50s.
above that, it gets ridiculous because the 49ers need to go get players. This is not a team, as it currently stands, built to go win a Super Bowl. Was it during Jimmy G's time? Yeah. Was it built in 2023 to be that? Yeah. Was it built in 2022 to be that? Once Christian McCaffrey got there? Yeah. All these things, yes. And next year, I'm very curious to see because I think this contract, in my opinion, like you mentioned, will either get signed very late or it won't happen at all during the season or before the season, I should say.
I think
We're going to see.
I think they'll make him an offer. They're going to make him an offer.
They already did.
What was their offer?
There's obviously no number out, but it was reported that they did make an offer. But
Okay, I'd like to know what the number is.
You're never going to get that information.
Okay,
you're never going to get it.
He didn't accept it, so
correct.
It's got to be too low.
That's what I read. The agent.
So it's probably in the mid 40s, probably somewhere in mid to low.
The
40s.
45 to 50 million, I guarantee you, was offered, but I think it's going to be closer. The Brock Purdy's camp is going to say, "Well, we made it to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game." And if I'm the 49ers, and this is a business, so we have to be honest and take the feelings out of it. I would say if I'm Jed York, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, if I'm John Lynch, so did Jimmy Garoppolo. So did Jimmy G. He was paid $27.5 million at the time.
No, he was still one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league.
He was the highest paid for all of about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a thing back in I don't want to get this wrong. People are going to call me 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. But again, you're talking about things in the past. We're talking about right now.
Okay, well, I
don't think Dak Prescott should set the level of what quarterbacks should be making.
I don't either.
I completely disagree with that. Joe Burrow, yes, because he made a Super Bowl and he is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. That's indisputable. If you want to say, well, this quarterback, top 5, but he's never going to go below top 5 because that's what he does on the field production-wise. Jordan Love is a projection. That's all it is. He made it to the playoffs as a 7 seed, won a playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys team. Trevor Lawrence, I think that's a bad contract. I don't think anybody's going to disagree that he has to earn that contract. He hasn't earned the $55 million per year. The Josh Allen, he finally came into that $55 million per year. He's won an MVP. He's made the playoffs consistently. The only thing he can't do is beat Patrick Mahomes. But not a lot of quarterbacks can beat Patrick Mahomes at all.
True.
Tua, that's the riskiest contract ever because one bad hit, he may be forced medically to retire. And with no left tackle, I'm going to be very concerned if I'm the Miami Dolphins. Jared Goff's interesting because he fits into that same category of the system benefits him immensely. But he's also been extremely productive on the field. And I think that he does deserve that contract. Justin Herbert, he's the opposite of Brock Purdy's career because Justin Herbert, the first 3 years, no other team has given up more points or more yards than Justin Herbert's defense the first 3 years of his career. So he's faced massive adversity. Brock Purdy got Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams, and a great defense through his first year and a half or year and a quarter, whatever you want to say, after Jimmy Garoppolo went down in 2022. So, yeah, I can and by the way, Brock Purdy was 5-0 in the regular season in 2022. How did Jimmy G do once Trey Lance went down? Oh, won a bunch of games. What was Brock Purdy's stats versus Jimmy Garoppolo's stats once Christian McCaffrey got there? Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo. They're very similar, very identical, and in some cases, Garoppolo's numbers are actually better than Brock Purdy's numbers. When you have phenomenal talent, it makes average quarterbacks look great, and it makes good quarterbacks look incredible. Mm-hmm. Brock Purdy he's a very good quarterback. The system, Kyle Shanahan, the talent around him, makes him look like a phenomenal quarterback. Because this was the first year he dealt with legitimate adversity. Quick check on the record, 6-11. If you face any level of adversity, because he can't overcome injuries. We've seen Lamar Jackson overcome injuries. We've seen Lamar Jackson overcome a terrible wide receiver core.
Lamar Jackson's never gotten to a championship game or a Super Bowl.
Yes, he has.
He's never got to the
AFC
NFC.
champ.
AFC champion. Sorry, he did get to. He lost.
Correct. 17-10 game, and he in parts cost his team the game in large swaths of that game.
That's right. Yeah,
but
he's never gotten to the Super Bowl.
Lamar Jackson has the talent to overcome that. Josh Allen has enough talent to overcome adversity. He had the wide receiver one through large parts of it. That was Khalil Shakir, and then a hint of Amari Cooper having his worst year of his entire career. Where's Brock Purdy's chance to overcome? And I'm not saying overcome a battered team because no quarterback when their entire team is depleted. But everybody respects Juwan Jennings. You've said repeatedly, when I don't leave him in the list of 49ers top receivers, you always say, but what about Juwan Jennings? Ricky Pearsall, who everybody loved Ricky Pearsall. Come in, be productive, put up a couple of great games. George Kittle was the league-leading receiver in passer rating when targeted. The top one. He's phenomenal at blocking. He's a tremendous receiving tight end. He's going to be a Hall of Famer eventually.
He's going to be there this year.
He's going to be there. Trent Williams should be back.
Yeah.
The offensive line, I think, depending on the way the draft
It's the defense that has holes.
The defense has holes because guess what?
They left all the players left.
For what reason? For Brock Purdy's contract.
Set up for his contract, yeah.
So if Brock Purdy becomes just the 12th best quarterback, you are not going to win a Super Bowl. You need him to be in that top 10, and the only way he's going to be in that top 10 is if you go out and Christian McCaffrey is healthy, if George Kittle remains George Kittle, if you get him a legitimate threat.
Brandon Ayuk,
everybody's saying he's going to be traded either in the middle of this season or next year he won't be on the roster. Probably because you can't afford it, because you got to get more players. You got to get younger, because everybody's aging.
We'll see what they do in the draft. They have a lot of picks.
And the one thing with Kyle Shanahan is, as we've seen over his history, is players are going to get hurt. That's just how Kyle Shanahan operates. And in the NFL, everybody's hurt by week 6. Everybody's dealing with something. So it's not like all of a sudden you have to be this pristine team. You have to do all this. Hell, the Detroit Lions were the most injured team in the NFL. They had 22 players on IR at one point and late in the season. They went 15-2. Teams could be banged up.
Yeah, true.
And the reason why you don't have the depth is because you have to pay some of these big contracts.
Mm-hmm. Well, my take is that the contract won't get done anytime soon. That's not the way the 49ers operate. It's going to be in the late summer, but I do think it will get done before the season starts, and I do think the first number is going to be a 5.
All right, there we go. We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, they face off. How nervous should we be about the Knicks' chances in that series after their recent struggles against the top Eastern Conference teams, as well as Clippers-Nuggets? Can the Nuggets keep up their winning streak after they fire Mike Malone? We're going to talk about all that and break down those two games right after this.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show.
Okay, it's the Pistons and the Knicks. The Pistons visit New York on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Detroit took the regular season series 3-1, but have only won one of their last 5 games. How crucial is a one win for the Knicks, Nate? What do you think?
I think it's massive. This New York Knicks team needs some sort of momentum to at least have them, let them have a shot in the second round. Because if they somehow go 7 with the Detroit Pistons, who, by the way, were the worst team in the NBA or close to it last year, and all of a sudden now the 6th seed, what a redemption story for Detroit. Yeah. Being one of the worst teams in the NBA, and all of a sudden now you're in the playoffs facing the New York Knicks as the 6th seed after the season you had the prior year. So, yeah, the Knicks need some sort of momentum. They need to come out here in Game 1 and absolutely dominate. And by the way, Detroit's down its second best player. So if New York just gets absolutely slapped in the first half, I'm going to be incredibly nervous because this team plays a lot of minutes. Tom Thibodeau, I do think he's a great coach. His job's on the line here. If they lose in the first round, or hell, if they get dominated in the second round and don't make it a competitive series, he's gone next year. Because I seriously think the Knicks need something to change because this is a roster that's built for deep playoff runs. They have the size, they have the talent, they have the depth, they have the overall just culture to win. But the fact that 3 out of the top 5 minutes played in the NBA are New York Knicks players, I can understand why by the 6th game of round 2, all of a sudden Jalen Brunson can't drop 25 or 26 points a game, and Cat looks a little bit tired, and OG Anunoby can't hit the broadside of a barn from 3. I can understand it. I wonder why you're averaging 38 minutes per game. So the Knicks need to get out there, dominate, and then finally sit your starters. But what's interesting is I'm extremely nervous, and this is going to be a very, very crucial Game 1. Pre-All-Star game, Knicks are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Post-All-Star game, this is where I'm severely nervous because look at the difference between pre- and post-All-Star game. Since the All-Star game, the Knicks are 15-13. They have 8 fewer points per game. They have 1 rebound per game less. They have 0.3 assists per game less. But all these things are going down. Field goal percentage drops about 3 points, and three-point percentage drops about 2 points. But let's compare it to the Detroit Pistons post-All-Star game because it's interesting. While the record is very, very similar, the points per game are a 9 difference in favor of the Pistons. Rebounding per game is in favor of the Pistons. Assists per game in favor, actually tied. Field goal percentage in favor of the Pistons. Three-point percentage in favor of the Detroit Pistons. So I'm extremely, extremely nervous for the New York Knicks in Game 1. They need to go out there and dominate, take control of the game. Karl Anthony Towns has a history of not being as effective in the playoffs as he is in the regular season. Will that continue in New York? New York Knicks fans and Tom Thibodeau and Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and everybody else should hope not. Because they've already dealt for several years of guys who are tremendous in the regular season and then fall apart in the postseason, a la Julius Randle, who's no longer on the roster anymore. So you don't have Dante DiVincenzo. This team is not the same team it was last year, where DiVincenzo could have a tremendous three-point shooting outage, and all of a sudden you're down late against Philly, and there's a double bang from Mike Breen off a rebound by Hartenstein, kick it out to Dante DiVincenzo, and he hits a nice 3. You don't have that anymore. You're going to have to rely on Josh Hart getting triple-doubles. You're going to need Karl Anthony Towns to be tremendous offensively. Jalen Brunson will get his, I'm sure. But you're going to need that second and third option. OG Anunoby, he's played well recently. You're going to need him to perform very well. You're going to need your bench, Deuce McBride, to also perform very well. You're going to need your bench guys to show up because your starters are going to get exhausted. By game 4 or 5 of this physical series against a very young team, and Cade Cunningham, who averages 30.8 points and 8 assists against the New York Knicks this year. And by the way, as you see in the lower third, Detroit won the series in the regular season 3-1. 3-1 for a team that was garbage last year and for a New York Knicks team that everybody agreed, me and you included, thought were really improved with Karl Anthony Towns, with Bridges. And they lost the regular season series to the Detroit Pistons. I'm incredibly nervous for this team. This game 1 means legitimately everything for the New York Knicks. They need to get on a hot streak.
Well, I don't disagree. I would say the Knicks' second half stats there, you saw them slipping a little bit. Brunson was out for 15 games, right? He had the injury, so I think that contributes to some of the slippage there. Actually, you could say they actually performed pretty well. They played better than 500 ball without him, so. And maybe that gave some of the other players some extra time and maybe made the bench a little deeper for the playoffs. So it plays both ways there. The Knicks have, they have championship aspirations after adding Bridges and Towns this past season. Towns 24.4 points per game on 42% three-point shooting. Led the charge along with Jalen Brunson, had 26 points per game and 7.3 assists per game, which contributed to the Knicks having the NBA's fifth-ranked offense. So they were pretty good offensively, and these guys are healthy right now, so they should put up a lot of points in these playoff games. The Knicks are trying to advance the second round for the second straight year. The Pistons grabbed the sixth seed after one of the biggest season-to-season turnarounds in recent NBA history, going from 14 to 44 wins in one season. It's the first time that a team has tripled their win total in one season. So hats off to Bickerstaff, their coach, for helping to turn them around. This is Detroit's first playoff appearance since 2019. They've not won a playoff game, or a playoff series, since 2008. That's a long, long time ago. Cunningham is their best player by far at 26.1 points per game, 9.1 assists, 6.1 rebounds per game. The Knicks have plenty of playoff experience while the Pistons have very little. Cunningham will have to have a big game for the Pistons to have a chance. In 2 games against the Knicks, he's averaged over 30 points. He scored at least that many in 4 of their last 6 games against the Knicks. So he plays well against the Knicks. 31 points per game against the Knicks are the most he's averaged against a single opponent. The Knicks have allowed the 5th most points per game to point guards, 25.5 per game. Cunningham averages 26.6 on the road, so I expect him to have a big game. I don't think you're going to be able to stop that guy. Brunson, on the other hand, has at least 30 points in 22 of 65 games that he played, with 3 of the most of those against the Pistons. So expect playoff Brunson to be at his best at home. I think Cunningham and Brunson basically going to negate one another. They're both going to have great games, and so it means other players are going to have to step up to decide who wins. And in my opinion, the difference maker is Towns. Saturday's opener against Detroit is the ideal moment for him to take center stage to remind the basketball world why the Knicks brought him aboard. Towns has great success against the Pistons, shooting 3-pointers in the regular season, hitting 3 and 4 shots in the first 2 games. His 3-point efficiency is great at 41.6%, and Detroit ranked 26th in 3-point percentage by opposing centers. So he's the guy, I think. I think that Cunningham and Brunson will kind of negate one another, and it's really Towns that's got to step up. Anunoby, he needs to be a big contributor defensively. I think that scoring-wise, he hasn't done well against the Pistons, and he ranked 5th in the team in scoring at home against Detroit this past season at 13.5 points per game and only 20% from 3-point range. So that's concerning. Bridges and Hart will have to also step up and have solid games for the Knicks to win. I expect Thibodeau to throw all he has, all his resources, to try to slow down Cunningham, who averaged 32.5 points at Madison Square Garden this season. If the Knicks can slow Cunningham down, it's doubtful that the Pistons supporting cast can pick up the slack the way the Knicks supporting cast can. I expect the Knicks to win a close one. I don't think they will cover the 7-point spread, which I think is pretty high.
I'll also say this. Brunson played in nearly half of those last 28 games. They went 5-7. So it's not like him being out there, all of a sudden they went 12-0. Right. But
he was hurt for 15 games.
They went 5-7 with Jalen Brunson out there post All-Star game. So again, it's not like they went 12-0 with him out there. They had a losing record. And in fact, actually take it away now. Let's do some quick math, shall we? Let's go up to the graphic right now. 5. These only went, 10-6 without Brunson.
Okay, well, 10-6 is a pretty good record.
5-7 with him. So it's not like all of a sudden they were doomed without Brunson. They had a winning record without him.
No, but he's their big assist guy, and this assist only fell minimally, right? A minimal amount, right? The assists were
they were down by 0.3.
0.3. That's
right,
nothing.
and what did that contribute to? Next to nothing. Their points plummeted. I don't know why I took it away. Their points plummeted by 8. Rebounds per game down by 1. Field goal percentage dropped. 3-point percentage plummeted. Jalen Brunson, since coming back, is averaging 33% from 3. So they're not a great shooting team since the All-Star game. And now they're going up against the Pistons team. And by the way, they got, in some of those games, blown out by Cleveland in a crushing fashion, blown out by Boston. They barely beat Philly when they've already given up. They beat Memphis by 1 point. They're in the play-in game and might lose tonight. They had to beat Miami, who nobody respects, in overtime. They lost to Golden State by 12. They lost to the Lakers in overtime. They beat Phoenix, who gave up. They lost to the Celtics again in overtime. They lost to these Detroit Pistons by 9.
Oh, so who do you think's going to win in Game 1?
In Game 1, I'm going to give it to the Knicks to come out strong because they should. And since the last 2 seasons, the Knicks have the 3rd most home wins in the NBA. So they better come out here and be out strong. But here's what I'm going to say, because we saw it actually against the Miami Heat, a game that we went to a few years ago. Miami, early in that game, the Knicks had control. The second half, what did Eric Spoelstra do? Make the adjustments. Kevin Love with those cross-court throws. They lose by 10 by the end of it? Tom Thibodeau kept calling timeout. They'd won with 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter. So there's an opportunity for the Knicks to start crumbling early in this game. If, for instance, Brunson doesn't get going, they're going to be in for a long night because they're going to have to rely on Karl Anthony Towns to be that X factor. And in the playoffs, he has proven to be an unreliable piece. Just ask Minnesota how he's done in the playoffs for them. They got off a guy who was ineffective in the playoffs in Julius Randle. Now they're with a guy who might be slightly better, who should be much better in the playoffs, but still, compared to his regular season efficiency, it takes a big nosedive. The only thing that improves drastically in fouls committed. You don't want that for your big guy. You don't want that for your second piece. And again, I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. If Deuce McBride is your key scorer off the bench, you're doomed. You're doomed. Yes, he had one great game where he dropped 20 points. But if he's your primary scorer off the bench, you're screwed.
Okay, well, who is going to take his place then? Who's going to be the primary scorer off the bench?
Here's what I'm hoping. The Knicks actually perform well enough that it doesn't matter who's the leading scorer off the bench because you'll have Karl Anthony Towns dropping 26.
It's going to be big minutes. It's going to be big minutes for the starters, and then they're all worn out by the end of the second series.
Well, big minutes not in numbers-wise, in effectiveness on the court. I need you blowing out teams, and then by the 35th minute, you're going to be sitting for the rest of the game. Or go out to these massive leads, they call a timeout. You could rest your starters for 4 or 5 minutes early in the game. And so if you need them late, they're fresher than they would be if you play them the entire first quarter, and then 6 minutes of the second quarter, and then 8 minutes of the third quarter, and still rely on them to come up big when you just played a very, very physical game against a young team who moves extremely well. J.B. Bickerstaff, a tremendous amount of credit to him for taking this team being an absolutely garbage team with Monty Williams, who everybody thought he was winning 60 games with the Phoenix Suns. Everybody expected him to turn around the Detroit Pistons.
It was terrible. 14 wins.
They set the NBA record, I think, for the most losses in a row in NBA history. And J.B. Bickerstaff, in one season, goes from being the worst team in the NBA to the 6th seed in the playoffs. Not enough credit there. And also, if the Knicks have trouble and the Pistons don't have their second best player, what does that say about the New York Knicks? Tom Thibodeau is going to get fired. This entire playoff run is entirely on Tom Thibodeau. 100% it is. Because how many years are you going to go out? Everybody thinks they have a round 2 cap. How many years are you going to go with the same repeat system when your players are saying we need fewer minutes?
Well, he's one of the winningest coaches now in Knicks history.
And at some point, you got to realize that doesn't matter anymore because it's not working in today's NBA.
Oh, I think they have a good chance to get through the 2 rounds. I think they really have a pretty good chance.
The second round's Boston Celtics.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. That's who they would play in the next round?
You going to take them over the Celtics?
No.
They need to win in 5. You need to beat the Detroit Pistons in 5 and get healthy, rest up. Otherwise, the Celtics may sweep. Just going to put that out there. Let's get into our final topic of tonight's show.
Okay, the Nuggets host the Clippers on tomorrow at 3:30 on ESPN. Denver's riding a 3-game winning streak since firing head coach Michael Malone, while the Clippers have won 18 of the last 21 games, and they won 8 in a row. How confident are you in Denver winning this series, Nate?
I said this once Michael Malone got fired. Just like every single one of these teams that I've said this about, I'm actually really nervous because the Clippers are riding an extreme high. James Harden's playing well. Kawhi Leonard, I'm going to show you the numbers. Over that 21-game span, he's played 17 of those games. He's on a tremendous high as well. This team is on an incredible run here, and Denver is trying to find this motivation after their head coach got fired, and they are riding a 3-game winning streak. So that's not to be understated whatsoever. You fire your head coach, everybody thinks it's all doom and gloom, including what we thought, and all of a sudden now you're riding a 3-game winning streak into the playoffs. That's the momentum that the Denver Nuggets would need in order to have them as the favorites in this series to go out and beat the Los Angeles Clippers. But I think the X factor for this series is one of two things. One of which is, as I've said on the show, the Denver Nuggets are having the worst defensive rating performance of their franchise's history. Every single one of the key players of the Denver Nuggets are having their worst defensive season of their careers. That includes Russell Westbrook's very elongated career. This year, it's his worst defensive performance, and everybody remembers how everybody ripped on his performance with the Los Angeles Lakers. This season, he performed worse defensively. Michael Porter Jr. is having his worst season defensively. Jamal Murray's having his worst season defensively. Aaron Gordon's having his worst season defensively. And Nikola Jokic, while he is the best defender on the Denver Nuggets, he's having his worst defensive performance of his career. Kawhi Leonard is the other X factor here. Because as he, I forgot the exact content, he texted somebody about how he was healthy. And this is the Kawhi over that 21-game span. They're 15-2. Averaging 25 points, 7 boards, 52% from the floor, 46% from 3, and a net rating of 16.0. That's massive. He has a 107 defensive rating and a 123 offensive rating. So him healthy, this is the Kawhi that we wanted to see for those several years when he's dealing with injuries consistently. This is the superstar Kawhi Leonard that everybody expected when you let him team up with James Harden, with Lou at the head coaching spot. This is the Kawhi Leonard we expected to see, and that should have led the Clippers to multiple playoff appearances and won multiple playoff series. But Kawhi's been banged up, dealing with injuries. He was out early this year with an injury. So if Kawhi can maintain this level of effectiveness on the court, yeah, I'm terrified for the Denver Nuggets, especially when you don't have Edelman should be a fine interim head coach. He, like I mentioned, 3-0 so far. But in late playoff game situations, does he have the experience to drop the right play for Nikola Jokic, for Jamal Murray, who should be coming back, for Aaron Gordon if he's the key guy? Can Michael Porter Jr. hit his shots? Or will he be like the MPJ that we saw, a couple playoff series ago, where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn from 3 and he kept shooting ineffectively and it was just a bad look entirely? And Nikola Jokic being that only factor on both sides of the ball. And Nikola Jokic is not a tremendous defender, but him being the best one, that just shows you what the state of the Denver Nuggets. They're the 4 seed. Nikola Jokic is having arguably one of the best non-MVP seasons because just based on the favorites, he's not projected to win the MVP. It's a runaway MVP for SGA, which I think is ridiculous. And I thought when Nikola Jokic won last year, Doncic was like a plus 4,000. He averaged 33, 9, and 9. So it was ridiculous how just separated that point spread was when it came to those odds. So I think Jokic is having arguably one of the best seasons a player's ever had. He's only the 3rd player in NBA history. Average a triple-double. He's a point center, as you always like to say. Again, never really heard the term coined before. I'm not saying you started the term, but I'm very active on sports media. Didn't really hear it before you said it. Okay. As much as you said it.
Well, that's what he is.
Absolutely, that's what he is. He's the 3rd player in NBA history to average a triple-double and the first center to ever do it. Mm-hmm. So if he's the only guy distributing the basketball, rebounding effectively, dropping 30 points a game, and I already told you before, He dropped a 60-point triple-double
And lost.
and lost.
They lost.
and lost.
No, they can't play that
That's
way. They
this
won't
Denver
win.
Nuggets team.
They
That
won't
isn't
win.
last
They
year.
won't win against the Clippers if they play that way. They
I
have to
completely
play.
agree with you.
Okay, so the Clippers are this should be a very competitive series. The Clippers are the 5 seed, the Nuggets are the 4 seed. They each have the same record, 50-32. The Clippers have won 8 in a row. The Nuggets have won 3 in a row. They seem to be getting the bounce off their new interim head coach. Teams split the regular season matchup 2 games apiece. Season stats show that the Nuggets are, I think, a better offensive team, and the Clippers are a better defensive team. The Clippers average 113 points a game. The Nuggets 121 points a game. The rebounds are pretty close, 44 to 46. Assists, this is where the Nuggets out-assist the Clippers. The Clippers at 25. The Nuggets at 31, which is a pretty big difference there. Turnovers about the same, 13, about 14 a game for the Clippers and about 14 for the Nuggets. Points allowed here, well, the Clippers have a better defense, 108. You just talked about how poor the individual players on the Nuggets have played defense this year. The Nuggets allowing 117 points a game, but scoring 121. The Clippers won the first 2 games, which were 109 to 104, 126 to 102, so they were very close. The Nuggets blew them out in the last 2 games, 120 to 98 and 126 to 103. The top players for the Clippers, and it's a little bit of a little strange here when you say Harden at 22.8 points and 8.7 assists is a top player because Leonard is back now, and he's really given them a boost. And he is their, premier player. We'll see what he does in the playoffs. He's played very well since coming back off injury. He missed the first 33 games of the season. The Nuggets, of course, it's Jokic, and he had a career year, an all-NBA historical year at almost 30 points a game, almost 13 rebounds a game, and 10 assists, averaging a triple-double. We talked about MVP candidates, and I said I thought that Alexander would win. But I thought Jokic really is the guy that has the numbers to justify getting the MVP yet again of a second year in a row. The wild cards to me in this series are Leonard, who is healthy and must contribute big minutes and scoring for the Clippers to have a chance. And on the other side, Murray, he's can he rebound from the recent injuries to play effectively and play like he plays in the playoffs, which is big. Generally, he plays very well in the playoffs. Clippers finished the season on a 7-0 run, undefeated in April. Harden has had a 5-game streak with 20 points and 10 assists. The only other player with such a streak was, guess who? Jokic. He had 3 streaks, 6, 5, and 5. Leonard has a 50% playoff shooting percentage and is the only player with at least 400 three-pointers and average 50%, which is amazing, I think. He shot 587 threes in the playoffs, and overall he has a 50% shooting percentage, so that is big. That shows how good he is. Zubek, we haven't said anything about him yet, but he had 16.8 points a game, 12.6 rebounds, and a shooting percentage of 63%. Wilt Chamberlain is the only other player to match those stats, and that was in 1966-67. So Zubek against Jokic is going to be very interesting. Also, on the coaching side, we know that the Nuggets fired their head coach and their GM just very late in the season with only 3 games to go. On the other side, you have Tyronn Lue, who has a .593 win percentage as a playoff coach, and which is 8th best in NBA history, minimum 50 games played. Among the 10 with this are or better win percentage, 8 of them are in the Hall of Fame, 7 as a coach, 1 as a player, and the other 2 are Kerr and Lue. So Tyronn Lue is a good coach, and is David Edelman up to the task here? He's stepped in, and for the small sample size that we have, I think he's got them playing the way they could win this series and maybe go deeper into the playoffs. because they're taking pressure off Jokic with better performances by Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon. The new coach has had them take on more responsibility as cutters and slashers, and they're picking up more responsibility and taking pressure off Jokic. Jamal Murray will also have to return to playoff form. Jokic needs to be a distributor. They will lose if he tries to put the team on his back and scores 50 or 60 points a game. I think for the Clippers to win, they need strong performances from Harden and Leonard. They need Zubac to slow down and frustrate Jokic, who is a premier low-post threat in the NBA. Jokic's worst offensive efficiency this year came against the Clippers, so that's something that Zubac can handle. The Leonard-Gordon matchup will be fun to watch. This is the first time that Leonard plays against the Nuggets this season, so to me that's really the wild card, how Leonard plays in this game, in this series and in this first game. I think the Nuggets are going to win the first game. They're playing at home, and they'll cover the 2.5 point spread.
I mean, what's interesting is that, yeah, they won 18 of the last 21, the Clippers did. But they weren't all games against bums like the Warriors, you could argue. When they first got Jimmy Butler, they were doing incredible, but they played against Charlotte and the Knicks and teams that you wouldn't say, you know what?
Knicks.
Would you say Knicks a difficult competition, though? I'm not saying that. They can't be good teams. The Clippers blew out Cleveland by 13 points. Blew out Houston, a defensive team, by 17 points. And we just saw them in the regular season finale, stakes pushed to the table. Beat Golden State in an overtime game and shut them down defensively in overtime. So if they could do that, if they could go up against Jokic, if they can go up against Jamal Murray, make them uncomfortable, you know what? It's going to be exactly like the Celtics did with Giannis in their playoff series. Let Jokic get his. Because we've already seen Jokic can drop 50 points, 60-point triple-double, and they lose. I think they're 2-5 in games where Jokic scores, 48 points or more. How? It's because your team it's not deep. It's super reliant on Nikola Jokic to perform well. And even when he does, you don't have anybody who's defensively that can make a stop when it matters and seal the game. So Jokic has to be the best defender, the best passer, the best rebounder, and the best scorer. At some point, you're going to say, I can't do this anymore. And against the Clippers team, and by the way, here's the interesting thing, they both shoot the ball very effectively from three, but don't attempt a lot. The Nuggets are dead last in three-point attempts. The Clippers are second to last in three-point attempts. The Nuggets are fifth in three-point percentage. The Clippers are seventh. Here's the key, though. Stopping teams from making threes. The Clippers are a top 5 three-point defensive team. The Nuggets are 22nd. So that's going to be a massive X factor in this, because if you can't stop Kawhi's mid-range, which is extremely lethal, James Harden gets going because he's really good in the first round of the playoffs. But in elimination games, I think he's shooting, 20% from the floor? 20% from the floor in elimination games. So if you get him to the second round, that's where I'm a little bit nervous of James Harden. I think the Clippers can seriously do damage to the Denver Nuggets. You know what?
So who's going to win?
I'm taking Clippers in 6.
Really?
I'm taking Clippers in 6.
This game, the first game?
The first game, I would need to look at the injury report. I think Jamal Murray should be back. I'm taking the Clippers to win game 1.
Wow.
I'm taking the Clippers in game 1.
And the Clippers in 6.
Clippers in 6.
I'm taking the Nuggets in 7.
Ooh. If this game, I'd be very surprised if this game goes, if the series goes 7.
Yeah.
Because that would mean Nikola Jokic does some historic things, or Jamal Murray wakes up, or this team does something uncharacteristic for this season's performance and they actually play good defense. Or we could see it on the opposite side. James Harden becomes playoff James Harden, where he just doesn't show up. Kawhi might get hurt. But I agree. Going up against a brand new head coach in Edelman versus Tyronn Lue, who you listed off, is amongst some Hall of Fame coaches.
Yeah.
When it comes to it,
they both have the same
experience.
record in the regular season, but you can argue that the Clippers' record would have been much better if
Kawhi missed a third of the season.
33 games.
Yeah, he missed nearly half the season.
Yeah.
And in this 21, let's bring up the numbers again. During the 21 game span, he played 17 of those games. They're 15-2, and look, 46% from 3. That net rating, I believe, would be second in the NBA. Because I think SGA is like a 17 rating or something ridiculous like that. I might be wrong. That might be number 1, but it's definitely well up there in net rating if that was Kawhi throughout the entire
Okay,
season.
well, I think the Nuggets will win the first game.
Give me the Clippers.
Playing at home.
Give me the Clippers Saturday afternoon. Give me the Clippers in the series. I think the Clippers win in 6 games.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens.
That does wrap up today's show. We got a big one on Tuesday. Tuesday is the finale of the 2025 mock drafts, picks 22 to 32. We'll break that down as well as react to some of these playoff games. Game 2 of the Knicks Pistons. Game 2 of the Clippers Nuggets. We'll talk about all of that on Tuesday, so make sure you're right here on YouTube, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.
Good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.